Series 12, Episode 7, Can You Hear Me? The Doctor drops Ryan, Graham and Yaz back off in Sheffield and says that they'll meet up the next day at around lunchtime. With Ryan going to visit a socially awkward friend of his named Thibault, Yaz meeting up with her sister in celebration of some anniversary of some event, and Graham going off to have a poker game with some of his close friends. Meanwhile, the Doctor gets a mysterious alert from 14th century Syria, specifically in the city of Aleppo. So she heads off there, where she meets a young woman named Tahira. And Tahira and most of the people in the city of Aleppo are seemingly being haunted by some type of creature. And this creature looks to me like a cross between a dinosaur and an orangutan, which it's pretty out there. But meanwhile, back in 21st century Sheffield, the gang each starts having mysterious happenings. Ryan agrees to stay over a night with his friend Thibault, only to find some mysterious figure in Thibault's room who detaches his finger, seemingly shoves it into Thibault's ear, and then makes him disappear. Yaz, after having a nice time with her sister, ends up falling into a nightmare where she's seemingly on some kind of highway, a long country highway, seemingly empty road, with a policewoman behind her and a version of her sister coming towards her and tells her that this time nobody's coming to help. She wakes up and finds the same mysterious man in her apartment, who seemingly then vanishes. Meanwhile, Graham seemingly has a vision of two planets seemingly on the verge of collapse, crashing into each other, and a woman calling out for help. So all three of them, of course, contact the Doctor, who, along with Tahira, comes to get them. Now, but they ultimately discover that the person who is causing this is seemingly a god-type figure named Zelin. He has been operating from a kind of prison ship, and and the person who Graham saw in his vision is not actually a woman who needed help, but rather another immortal god named Rakea. And they're causing these nightmares among people in order to keep Rakea sane until she can be freed and they can feed on nightmares. And then it's up to the Doctor and co. in order to try and stop them once and for all. While I admit this probably isn't the strongest episode, it does have one or two moments that I do feel are pretty nice. I mean, there's a change in the TARDIS technology, as once again we see the use of the telepathic circuits. Now, with the Peter Capaldi era of the show, the telepathic circuits were kind of you may remember, a kind of gel-type thing that was fixed into the TARDIS console that Clara merely slotted her hands into, with the Doctor saying, "If anything bites, let it." Whereas this time the Doctor seems to have a whole wire set up that she attaches to Graham's head. So it is nice to see the TARDIS telepathic circuits back in action, even if they have had a change of technology. And Graham does have one joke when they asked him, "Look, can you identify the planets?" He said, "Get me an intergalactic A to Z, and I'm pretty sure I could have absolutely no idea." So I personally thought that was a little funny, and that to me was a good joke. But then some of the nightmares that you see with them are actually pretty creative. I mean, when they eventually get to a slot of everyone having nightmares, you've got the Doctor remembering the information from the Master about Gallifrey and the Timeless Child, which we will apparently see later on. You've got Graham seemingly back in hospital, where he is seemingly being helped by a woman, by Grace, another version of Grace, who tells him that his cancer has returned and it's much more aggressive this time, and he's got a couple of hours before turning him to say, "Why couldn't you save me?" We've got Ryan seemingly in a burning place, where he finds that his friend Thibault is saying, Where were you? Like, everything's gone to hell. Like, where were you all this time?" And then, of course, you got Yaz's kind of vision of the road. So, them having to work together is nice, but then you also do get a nice bit of character backstory, especially for Yaz. Because for the past two series, probably the most developed companion out of the three of them is probably Graham. As we've seen the death of his wife. I mean, while him and Ryan are linked together in that way, we didn't really know that much about Yaz. I mean, we know she had a family. We knew she was a policewoman. She had a kind of tug and tow relationship with her sister, but we honestly didn't know that much about her. And this episode does actually give a bit more character background on Yaz, which I do feel is nice. In that when this is all said and done, we see where the basis of her nightmare came from. And it's that 3 years ago from that moment, when Yaz was still in school, she was being bullied, her grades were beginning to slip, and her parents didn't really understand what she was going through, so she had run away. Which is like something in your childhood and teenage years that you do kind of consider again and again, saying, oh, maybe I should run away, maybe that's the best way to do it, run away from my problems. And the place she ran away to, or as far as she got, was the empty road that we see in her nightmares. And the policewoman, who apparently was named Anita Patel, she came up to Yaz and said that she had been called by her sister because her sister was worried about her and that she might do something stupid. And tells Yaz that, yeah, things feel like they're piling up over time, but she can say from experience that things will get better. And while Yaz, in her kind of teenage pre-adult state, is somewhat reluctant to listen, Anita May sits down beside her and tells her she'll make her a deal, that to give it 3 years. 3 years later, look her up. If things genuinely have got better, well, if things haven't gotten better at all, then Anita will give Yaz 50 quid. She would do more, but hard paying job. However, if things have changed for Yaz and they legitimately have gotten better, then Yaz will have to pay Anita 50p. And that small kind of sequence, it does so much for Yaz's character. And it gives her a bit of it gives her backstory on how things were before she joined the Doctor, before she joined the police force even. It shows that life was kind of difficult for her at one point, and it gives her a bit of background as to why she joined the police force. It it builds up the relationship with her sister, in that we've seen throughout the past two series that the two of them have this tug and fro thing of oh of sisters pretty much being sisters, and that I hate you, I want you out of my life. Why is she looked on as the golden child? But then they do actually love each other unconditionally, and that is a nice point to see. The ending of this episode, I feel, is generally where each character shines. As Ryan has kind of a sit down with Tibor and says, look, I'm going to be going away again soon, but just do me a favour, alright? Do something about your problem. To which we see Tibor attending some kind of meeting where he admits he's been trying to get out there to kind of be more socially interactive with people, even if it meant just going down to the supermarkets. However, that proved problematic when all of the checkouts were replaced with machines. We of course see Yaz looking up Anita and paying her the 50p, and Graham attempting to get some of his worries about his cancer returning and his worries about life off with the Doctor, even if the Doctor isn't immediately helpful. And there is also a moment pretty much right at the end where Yaz and Ryan are simply having a conversation, and it's like, is this just going to be our lives now? Are we always going to be travelling with the Doctor, watching our friends grow old while we hardly age at all? It's like, I don't know, maybe. To which it does raise the question of how long this version of the TARDIS crew are going to be sticking around for. Because, well, by this point, it has been announced that Tosin Cole has managed to get himself a role in an American TV series. So there's a question of whether they're going to stick around. But we've still got 3 episodes left of Series 12 to see what happens with that. So I think Can You Hear Me? It's an interesting episode. It gives a lot more character background for Yaz. It gives a lot more emotional depth for each of the characters, and it does have some pretty intimidating foes. So yeah, I personally think Can You Hear Me was a decent episode. Anyway, next one up, The Haunting of Villa Diodati. That's going to be interesting, and it'll supposedly show Lord Byron and Mary Shelley. Anyway, that's going to be spooky. Until then, see ya.